Have you ever wondered what people from the past would think of us today? I mean, really think of us. What if we could pull two literary giants straight out of the 1700s and ask them to critique our digital lives, our feeds, our follows, our anxieties? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore, using their centuries-old wisdom as a lens for our very modern world. Just take a second and really think about that. What would someone who contemplated life and death in a quiet country churchyard, long before electricity, let alone the internet, what would he make of your Instagram profile that's active 24/7? It's kind of a wild thought, right? So our guides for this little thought experiment are two absolute titans of poetry, and they couldn't be more different. On one side, we've got Thomas Gray, the quiet, thoughtful, almost melancholic observer. And on the other, you have Robert Burns, the fiery, passionate, democratic activist. One would see our digital world and find total despair, while the other would see a powerful tool for revolution. All right, let's dive in, and we'll start with Thomas Gray. Now, back in his day, the great tragedy was silence. Lives lived and potential just lost without ever being recorded. But today, he'd see the complete opposite problem. He would see the tragedy of overwhelming, inescapable noise. Gray would be absolutely horrified by our whole idea of digital immortality. His poems celebrated the quiet dignity of being forgotten, the peace that comes with oblivion. So the thought of a social media profile just living on forever as this digital ghost, this forced, noisy presence, it would go against everything he believed was essential about life and death. You can almost hear how Gray might rewrite his most famous poem for our time. This verse here reimagines his elegy, and it's basically asking, can our digital memories, this chaotic pile of data we leave behind, ever really be a dignified memorial? It's a heavy question, right? Can a like or a share truly recall a soul from the dead? So Gray's original tragedy was the mute, inglorious Milton, a potential genius who never got the chance to be heard. Today, that idea is completely flipped on its head. Anyone can have a platform. So the new tragedy Gray would see is the mute, inglorious influencer, someone who has all the tools to speak, but is just completely drowned out by the constant, relentless competition for our attention. And this brings us to the big, invisible force in our lives. Back in the 18th century, people wrestled with the idea of fate. Gray would probably see the algorithm as our modern version of that. It's this unseen, all-powerful force that decides who gets seen and who stays invisible. But it's not weaving our destiny based on some grand divine plan. No, it's doing it with cold, hard data points. This is just brilliant because it gets to the heart of Gray's critique of us. His own melancholy was this deep, philosophical thing. He'd look at our world and see sadness being turned into a product, into self-care brands. We have trending therapists and branded tears. It's all about performing sadness, not actually feeling it in a quiet, genuine way. Okay, so let's completely switch gears and bring in our second poet, Robert Burns. Because where Gray saw all this despair and isolation, Burns, he would see a weapon for justice. He'd see a stage for a global uprising. Robert Burns was famous for his authenticity, for using the language of everyday people. You just know he would have absolutely mastered the internet. He'd be the bard of the viral rant. Can't you just picture it? Passionate, unfiltered video monologues, sharp, witty threads that cut right through the noise and bring people together from all over the world. And you can bet he wouldn't be writing about local Scottish landowners anymore. He'd be going global. This is how he might update his most famous anthem, "A man's a man for all that." He'd aim his fire straight at the global billionaire class, their IPOs, and their private space races, reminding everyone of the real human cost behind it all. I mean, his sharp, satirical wit would have a field day with our world. He'd take aim at all the hypocrisy we see every day. Political virtue signaling? Check. Corporate greenwashing? Absolutely. The keyboard warrior who preaches justice but acts with cruelty? He'd tear that apart. And of course, the curated fake perfection of online life. Burns would also draw these really powerful connections to his own time. He witnessed the Highland clearances, where poor farmers were kicked off their land to make way for sheep because sheep were more profitable. He would see a direct line to modern automation, the factory worker replaced by a robot, the artist replaced by an AI. He'd call it the new Highland clearance, a world where human beings are once again seen as inefficient and disposable. And maybe his biggest modern cause, the thing he'd write about most passionately, would be the gig economy. He would see the delivery driver, working for an app, as the modern version of the 18th century plowman. Totally vulnerable, completely dependent on a faceless system that doesn't even see them as a person, just a user ID. And his poetry, it would become a rallying cry. This verse just captures that spirit so perfectly. It's a defiant shout for the dignity of the modern worker, a reminder that behind the ratings and the algorithms, there's a human heart and an aching bone, and that has to matter more than code. Okay, so we've got these two powerful and seemingly opposite takes on our digital world. We have Gray's quiet despair on one side and Burns' righteous fury on the other. So how do we possibly bring them together to create a guide for actually surviving the 21st century? Well, the key is to realize they're not contradictory at all. They're actually two sides of the same coin. Think of it like this. Gray gives us the why. He explains why we need to step back from the constant noise, why we need to resist this tyranny of being visible all the time. And then Burns comes in and gives us the how. He shows us how to take that quiet understanding and turn it into real action, into solidarity against injustice. And this table just lays it out perfectly. Gray critiques the digital noise. Burns uses that same noise to amplify the voices of the silenced. Gray focuses on the psychological anxiety of the attention economy. Burns attacks the systemic injustice of the gig economy. So, to put it simply, Gray gives us the wisdom to see the problem, and Burns gives us the courage to fight it. And so, this guide from the 18th century leaves us with a very 21st century choice. It really asks us to look at our own lives and decide which path we need to follow. In the middle of all this digital chaos, are you going to choose the path of quiet reflection or the path of a righteous roar?